United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. Clance?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan? Mr. Song?
Here.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Here.
8 here, 0 absent.
Thank you.
One absent.
1 absent.
At this time, are there any resident and property owners who wish to address the council? Yes, sir. Would you please state your name and your address for the record?
Yes, Jeff Eilenberger, 2 Village Drive. And I'm going to take, a second, so I don't get gabbled, I'm going to take exactly 3 minutes of your time.
Good. That's exactly how much time you have.
Good. Okay.
Good number.
If I can speak while I'm handing these out.
Just here, down here, we'll pass them along.
Take one, pass them on. What I'd like to address is regarding dispatch and the status of the recommendation last night from the Town and Safety Commission. It was a unanimous vote to go ahead and make the same recommendation as last time. Continue, not with the status quo, continue to try and get another town to make this a regional dispatch center and to work out any kinks we have with scheduling. They pointed out some things and recommendations that we can more efficiently schedule, use our full-timers, and as the mayor has said, have our A game on at all times. What I want to make clear, though, we're going to have a presentation from the mayor regarding the recommendations for dispatch and what came about. It says cost is not a driving factor. If cost is not a driving factor, the only thing that I can presume is that the fear of being forced to regionalize or go somewhere else by the state. In here I have an email from Russell Shaw to Sean McGuckin, John Marlico, Sergeant James Gilman, and a cover copy to Mark Bancroft. This is dated 12/11. Had a long conversation with Mike Guerra of Office of Statewide Emergency Telecommunication, also known as OSET. Mike Guerra is fairly high up in the food chain there. In response to questions that they had, his position is that the state would like to consolidate the financial offers, although the offers of financial reimbursement have not worked yet. Also, as there has been so much opposition from the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, which the mayor is very fond of, it is highly unlikely for any forced mergers in the immediate future. Any forced mergers would be up to the legislature, and while that could happen at any time, with the CCM opposition, it is unlikely in this year. That, combined with the fact that we have one town that wants to come on board. They're showing interest. We're going independent with the police department. We're going to need dispatch for that. Dispatch we have already set up. The communication between the police, which dispatch is now under, and the police is excellent. Making a decision to outsource to another town, another dispatch center, in my opinion, I'm not going to dog anybody or throw them under the bus, we have a better dispatch center. Our personnel know the town, they know the emergency responders, and that's not an emotional thing, that's just a fact. To outsource this through fear, let's come away up and do it right. Let's use it to our advantage. Thank you.
Thank you for you were a model commenter. So I wish that everybody would listen to that and we'll move forward. Any other? Any other resident property owners wish to address the council? got a tough act to follow.
That's not true. That's all my materials that we've actually presented during this lengthy process. My name is Paula Jean Smith. I live on Long Cove Road. Because of where I work, I not want to give the exact address, but I actually run the 911 dispatch center. I'm not going to read my entire letter to you, but I would like to paraphrase some key areas. There's a lot of new counselors sitting before me, and I appreciate you giving the time to take and give you just this brief overview. I wanted to go into a little bit of the history of the dispatch center. We came from a very unique, wonderful lady named Addie Merchant. We transitioned in 1989 from her bedroom to the Town Hall Annex. And our communications level obviously increased, and what we could do also increased at that time. In 2002, working in conjunction with the Ledyard Police Department, the Ledyard Town Council merged the Ledyard Dispatch Center with the Police Department. And we became the communications division for the Ledyard Police Department for the first time actively dispatching for police, fire, and EMS. As we continued to grow in 2003, we actually got the town of Preston on board in January 8th of 2003. We became their primary dispatch center, dispatching for the Preston City and Pawcatuck departments, both fire and EMS. I'd like to take and share with you a little bit about the value of the Ledyard Dispatch Center, because I know a lot of you actually haven't had time to come down and visit us. And if you don't really have a scanner or really understand what's actually going on in your town, we actually can't express the value enough to you as the town council members and to the mayor. The town of Ledyard and Preston, we're an integral part of the Ledyard Police Department. We're a 911 PSAP as designated by the state of Connecticut, an Emergency Communications Dispatch Center. After hours contact for the WPCA, the Fire Alarm Monitoring Station. First responder for any emergency calls we receive by providing pre-arrival emergency medical dispatch instructions. Communications staff for the Emergency Operations Center in the event of a millstone or natural disaster. And we're the first person that the public sees when they go to the police station, no matter what time of the day or night. Our police station is open 24 hours a day, and it is a sanctuary for people who need help and assistance. You know, we've actually had walk-ins from asthma attacks to severe motor vehicle accidents to people involved in domestic violence. The Ledyard DCC is actually in what they consider in the state as a multi-town PSAP, because we do have the town of Preston as well as the town of Ledyard. Because of that, we receive a subsidy from the state of Connecticut of around $56,000. For Preston, the town actually provides $25,000. If you take and add the figures up, our overall budget for last year was $376,864. By percentage, it's only 1.766% of the overall town budget. If you subtract the monies that we earn as a community dispatch center or regional dispatch center, it actually drops the cost of running the dispatch center down to $295,864, which, if you compare that with the overall town budget, is only 0.601%. It is not even a full percentage. The services that we provide, we cannot even take in and tell you everything that we do for the residents of Ledyard. From making sure that they get evacuations out of unsafe areas or areas without power, to making arrangements for older people who are homebound and have no power, for actually getting meals. The value is just tremendous. I encourage all of you to come down and see your dispatch center, see what we do, learn about what we do. The Public Safety Committee has actually appointed by town charter to take and investigate this process. It's a group of fire chiefs, ambulance directors, Board of Education, Director of Nursing, the mayor, the public safety administrator, all people with tremendous amounts of knowledge and experience. Last night they voted unanimously to keep the dispatch center in town and to actively pursue getting another town into our dispatch center. In closing, it's important to note the decision to outsource the dispatch center, in my mind, would not be in the best interest of the residents of Ledyard or Preston, because Preston is involved in this process, because it will drastically change the way that their services are dispatched. The potential impact could affect multiple jobs in dispatch and the town hall with union bumping rights and the way that our emergency services currently operate. We have grown tremendously in our 24 years of operation and stand ready to lead the way by becoming a regional communications center, your best resource. When everybody's sleeping, the dispatch center is open for everybody. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to speak before the council? Yes.
Hello, everyone. Roseanne Kotowski. I live at 24 Ann Avenue in Mystic, Connecticut, and I am president of the Town Hall Employees Union. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to read the following into the minutes. This is to request that the Town Council support the August 27, 2013 unanimous decision of the Public Safety Committee and keep the dispatchers in Ledyard. Some of the committee comments at the meeting in support of keeping the dispatchers in Ledyard included: the committee chairman stated that the dispatchers are the best value and provide a good service to the residents of Ledyard, as evidenced by the fact that there are no complaints from either the public or other emergency services regarding either the level of service or the cost of running the dispatch center. The committee chairman also stated that supporting the dispatchers is not maintaining the status quo, but rather an effort to grow the service with possible opportunities with the town of Voluntown. In fact, the town of Ledyard is able to transmit and receive with Voluntown, as demonstrated recently when an EMT tested the system while riding around the town in an ambulance. Also stated at the meeting was that outsourcing does have its downsides. Two examples of the town of Ledyard outsourcing services was brought up: the probate office and Ledgelight Health District, both of which have costs that continue to go up. Please support the unanimous decision of the Public Safety Committee and keep the dispatchers in Ledyard, as it is the best option and provides the best value to the residents of Ledyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Hi, my name is Rick Momotoy. I live on Flintlock Road. I'm also the director of Ledyard Ambulance. We discussed it last night. Like everybody else has said, the board came up unanimous to keep the dispatch center in town. I'm more than 100% in favor of doing that. I've worked with these people time and time again. I've gone to calls where around here not all the addresses are properly done right, but you call dispatch or anything like that, or anybody down there, and you ask them which area exactly is it at, they're going to tell you right where it's at. You go to another town or something like that, they're not going to have that knowledge. And that's just going to delay care and everything else for somebody. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever needed the ambulance or called for it or anything, and it seems like hours are going by waiting for it to come and everything else, and it's not really that long. But that's because we know where we're going, because of the people at dispatch and everything else. You ask any one of these people back here, they're going to tell you the same exact thing. If they have an issue with trying to get to a place, or they're not sure, they're going to be able to tell you at dispatch. They're going to be able to tell you if there's a detour that you need to take or whatnot, because of it. With all the milling and everything else that's going on and everything else around here, they know different ways to get in and quicker ways to get in than even some of us that have been here for 20 years or whatnot. So to see a change or anything like that, I think it's the wrong move to do. Personally, I think it's a stupid move to do by moving it, and you're better off just keeping it here and just letting us grow as we have since since little old Addie. And that's when I first came to this town and everything else, was back when she had it in her bedroom. And they complained, people complained a little bit when it moved out, when it moved to the town hall basement, because I remember going there. And now they're down there, and now they want to get rid of it from down there, which to move into a better building, that's fine. But to move it out of the town, that's the wrong mistake. So I'm just hoping you make the right decision in keeping it down. Thank you.
The decision is not ours, I'll just clarify that.
Okay.
Anyone else have any comments for the town council? Mr. Lamb.
Good evening. Robert Lamb, 99 Lambtown. Looking around, council members, we all have a large investment in this town. We'd be sad to wake up and know that we need an emergency service and Groton or whoever it might be didn't send somebody. I think we'd be a little upset. So looking at other taxpayers in town that have large investments, they're concerned too. And just talking with maybe 30 people in the last 2 weeks, a lot of them are in favor of keeping what we got, increasing possibly other towns to join us to offset the cost. Now, like I attended yesterday's meeting in this room, and there's some questions about Mayor John not getting information. I don't know what that's all about, but hopefully when John makes his presentation later, if there's any stumbling blocks or everybody gets on the same page, I think we'll clear up a lot about information that the newspaper's saying one has, one don't. So, for me and some of the people, please do the right thing, support what we got, increase it to other local towns, save us some money in the long run. The other question I have for the council is not this related. Cedar Heights, has that been accepted as a town road? You probably don't have that information, but please get back to me. Somebody ought to have...
It has not.
Pardon?
It has not.
It has not? Okay, thank you. Somebody ought to have somebody in an official capacity to look at the runoff that's created from Bittersweet. There's been a couple of blowouts, steep hill embankments, no erosion or little erosion control, and driveway aprons. Major issue down there. Somebody take a look. If the town has to pay to pump out the basins, it's not the taxpayer's fault. I hope the right person is billed to take care of the problem that occurs here. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Anyone else like to speak before the council?
Good evening. My name is Mason Stefan. I live at 763 Ledyard Hill Road, and I am the volunteer person for Ledyard Ambulance that handles scheduling for the volunteers. It's been very interesting to realize that the police dispatch may actually go away, and also to realize that many of our volunteers come from police dispatch. Not only do they put in their hours at police dispatch, they then volunteer for the town to come run the ambulances, to jump on fire trucks, to run into buildings. That would be a real shame to lose that talent pool. We also have an EMT instructor down there that trains a lot of our personnel to get their emergency medical licenses for the state of Connecticut. Again, why are we messing with that resource of volunteers? Recently, on an ambulance call, one of my parishioners at my church has early on-state dementia, and she commonly locks her house. She's very afraid that someone's going to get into her house. And it was very comforting for me to know that Ledyard Dispatch had keys, and the police knew that they had the keys down at dispatch that they could go and get into her house and take care of her. I don't think that we would get that kind of service if we outsourced. So please don't. Please don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak before the council? Okay. Comments, committee, commission, and board reports. Mr. Diaz, WPCA. It's your turn.
Thank you. Jim Diaz, 45 Bittersweet, also chair of the WPCA. I've written a letter to the town council about the potential extension of the Alden Heights Water Main project to Oak Hills Trail. I hope that you've all had the opportunity to read that letter. but I wanted to make myself available for any questions that you might have regarding this. To summarize that letter, the WPCA unanimously endorsed the concept of extending the water main project to include Oak Hills Trail. Our endorsement is based solely on the water distribution aspects of this project. So we're not sure why Oak Hills Trail was not included in this project in the beginning. It seems like it should have been. We believe that if we don't put pipe there now, the chances of distribution being there at any time in the future is pretty small. As you know, the water main goes right past the intersection of Oak Hills Trail and Abbeville, so it's there just to extend. It offers a benefit to the residents, both present and future, in that neighborhood, in that it provides fire protection, which we see as a very important benefit to the extension of the water distribution system to Oak Hills Trail. As you may know, there are about 14 residences on that street presently, 7 of which, approximately 50% of which are flag lots. Many of them have come to the WPCA to speak to us against the extension of this water main project. And I can understand that. It happened to me as a business owner in Lorenz Industrial Parkway, where that wasn't originally included in the plans for 117. And I was assessed, and that's the basis, that's really the basis of the objections. I don't blame them for it, but we as a WPCA, we can't think about that. We need to look at this from purely the aspect of distribution of water. Now, there are 7 homeowners that did not come to the WPCA, and you might want to think, okay, those that didn't come are in favor, and I don't know if that's true or not. But I sympathize with them, and they're concerned over, they all said they have good wells, right? Those flag lots, it would be very expensive for them to actually connect to this water distribution system because there's more length to run the piping into their homes. So, I mean, I sympathize with them, but I need to make clear to you that our decision wasn't based on that. Our decision was not based on current residents, it was based on also future residents. It was based on providing fire protection to the area immediately, right? And it was based on the long-term considerations of bringing water to the Oak Hill Trails area. You have a hard decision to make when you decide whether you're going to vote to approve this or not. And I think there are also some financial concerns. This isn't going to make or break anything, right? I mean, we'll still have a good water distribution system. But there's a little piece of Ledyard that might never get water if we don't do this now. Okay? And I'm available for any questions you might have. Excuse me. There's one other thing that I want to give this to. We have approved a rate increase. We had 2 public hearings. There's a packet of information here, including the minutes to those public hearings. We would like to enact those rate increases October 1st, so we ask that you consider putting that on your agenda before that time frame. We need your approval for both the 13% increase in water rates as well as the 8% increase in sewer rates in accordance with Ordinance 105. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about that today as well.
And you need to write a letter.
And we need to write a letter. Very good.
Do
Would you draft that for us?
No. I'll have the secretary.
Do any town council have questions for Mr. Diaz? Mr. Sorrells.
Thank you. Chairman Diaz, did you have a second public hearing on the water main extension for Oak Hills Trail?
We did. We had 2 public hearings. And we had roughly the same people attend both of them. The second public hearing was because we found we didn't have enough advance notice for the first public hearing. But it was good because it gave more people the opportunity to come. We had, as you'll see in a minute, we had a lot of people were questioning the WPCA about other aspects of operations that didn't really have to do with the rate increase. We had one person that said, yes, there should be a rate increase, but she wasn't sure if this was the amount. In the second hearing, I don't think we had anyone speak against the rate increase. The town council knows that there's a 30% request for a rate increase a while back, that we only enacted a 10% increase because we didn't have the financial information. We have that information now, thanks to the mayor and the financial staff in this town, and changes. And, this rate increase that we're asking for, 13% for water, and it's roughly, I'm going to ask you to approve an exact table, right, because it's a sliding. So don't just say 13% in your motion, and that table is in the documentation. And the 8% for water is a necessary increase so that we can cover the expenses of operations, the current expenses for operations of the water and sewer department.
So, I'm sorry, thank you for that. I asked the question correctly. That was, you answered in regard to the rate increase. You had a WPCA meeting where a number of people showed up and spoke about the Oak Hills Trail.
Yes.
Water main extension. Did you have a public hearing about that, or is that something we...
I'm sorry, no, we didn't. We considered it, but we think if anyone is going to have a public hearing on that, it should be the town council, because it would be a bond issue. But there is something I should bring out, and I didn't. I did in my letter, but I should bring it out here. The process for changing projects of this scope needs to be refined. I believe, and one of the residents brought it up, especially a young man that's in the services, and he said, no one told me this was going to happen. There's a potential of you slapping me with a $5,000 assessment on my property, and I wasn't notified. The process for approving and the vote and the referendum and everything on it, I think, is a good one, and everyone's notified there. But if we're going to modify that, I think it is the responsibility of the town to notify these residents individually. We'll be taking that up in the WPCA for our projects, but I don't know if there's any other projects that the town might need to consider doing the same.
Any other questions for Mr. Diaz? Mr. Prince?
You brought the example of Lorenz Parkway. I assume that was in addition to the 117 extension. That's primarily a business area. There are examples of other projects where a residential road was added to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Before my time, but I believe actually Route 12, there were some extensions to the water main extension up to Route 12, in which, I think, yes, in which the project was extended after the vote to approve it and after the referendum, and that was done. And I think the reasoning is, here we find that we're spending, and I got to make it clear, we don't want to spend all the money we have. We don't want to do that. That's not the reason this came up. This came up because a resident said, why don't I have water? Right? I see the pipe going in right here, and I'm just a few houses down, and they brought that to the attention of the town engineer, Mr. Maslin. But yes, there have been other instances in which we've done the same.
Do we know what the process was when that was done?
Town council. The WPCA voted on it and sent it to the town council, and the town council agreed to it. Back then, the process was the WPCA got to change the scope of the project. This particular project, the council is the only one that can change the scope. But they did bring it to the council for approval because we were spending more of the bond issue. What they tried to do as many streets as they could under the amount of money. And when you bid it, it comes in cheaper than what you think it's going to be. And we added a lot of streets under the bond.
Any other questions for Mr. Diaz? Thank you. Good
You're
to
welcome.
see you. You have to come back more often.
Thank you.
Comments for town councilors? Mrs. Rebecca.
As one town council who has visited the dispatch center numerous times, I am very, very impressed with the level of service we receive from the dispatch center. I also have, unfortunately, had numerous occasions to use the 911 system and have ambulances dispatched to my house. The dispatch center does a great job. You volunteers are wonderful. I thank you. I also have a scanner in my house, actually more than one scanner in my house, and I hear the dispatches. I hear the information that is dispatched to the police, dispatched to the volunteers. I mean, there's nothing that makes me feel more comforting than when a police officer is dispatched to a house and the dispatcher says, there are guns in that house. or when an emergency response is going to a house that has had issues in the past, and they say to the dispatch, to the ambulance people, wait for the police to arrive before you enter the building. So I value the dispatch tremendously. And I have had a problem when I have a burglar alarm in my house, it went off. And at that time, the state police were dispatching Ledyard police. And 20 minutes goes by, and no one shows up. And finally, I hear it dispatched through my scanner to the wrong address, but dispatched. I called the dispatch, and they corrected the address. The police eventually showed they were very professional. Turned out it was a false alarm. But I contacted my alarm company because I thought 20 minutes, if there was really someone in my house, they had plenty of time to eliminate me. So I was a little concerned, and I found out that it was because the state police were too busy to dispatch the call immediately. It wasn't a priority. So I would hate to have us go to another town to find out that the call at my house, your house, isn't that priority, that particular moment that the call comes in and have a problem. Thank you.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I did read something in the paper that said that nobody in the town council probably has ever called dispatch, and I happen to know for a fact that many people sitting here have called dispatch.
Called this morning.
Did you?
I've talked to Jake many times ago.
Anyone else have any comments, please? Yes.
I'd like to thank the Public Safety Commission for their work and their long hours in dealing with the dispatch issue. A lot of the volunteers know that when you volunteer for something like that, it's a lot of hours spent away from your family. It's a lot of time spent. And I just want to thank them for their time and their efforts. Also to thank everyone that stood up at the meetings and came forward and spoke their mind. And it's not always a popular thing to do or an easy thing to do. But that a long time ago, a small group of people got together and they fought for a common goal. And there was a document written that Washington starts out with "We the People." Well, you guys are we the people. You came together, you fought for a common goal, and hopefully you'll win. We'll see what tonight brings out. So thank you for coming forward. And to touch on something that Rick brought up, if the ambulances, fire trucks can't find your house and your sign's not visible, you can get one of these from the Ledyard Fire Company. You can get them in horizontal and vertical, and they're at $15. And it's a very good investment because some of the street addresses are not visible at all when you're driving by them, and you can lose a lot of time. And if you're the one sitting there gasping for breath on the floor, and you hear that siren go by, it's a lousy feeling. So for $15, tell John Doucette at 464-9222.
And for $20, they'll actually install them.
Will they?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That's what was posted in.
That's already $20.
Yeah, that's $20 is installed. Any other comments
I
from?
got some more stuff.
Oh, jeez.
No restaurant stuff.
During one of the meetings, one of the residents brought up the cost of dispatch. You want to talk about taxes, we need to do something to bring taxes down. And I've sat in the finance committee for two terms now, and I'm telling you, there is no fat in the budget to trim. What's a good number for savings? Like $100, $200? Say 200. My taxes are $4,400 a year. To knock off $200 of my taxes, which is not a lot of money over 12 months, you'd have to get rid of about $1 million worth of business services to take $200 off my taxes. And that's probably an average figure for people in this room. And that's, for perspective, that's both firehouses, the ambulance, and half a library, basically. So the numbers in the budget they're hard numbers. There's not a lot of wiggle room in that budget. So to come up with a savings amount on our taxes, we're doing the best we can. The numbers are tight. And then one last thing, and then I'm done. That's for clarification. I was led to believe that and this may be premature, but because maybe nothing's changing, there'd be no vote, because why would you vote on no change? But if there was going to be a change, I thought it was going to come to the council for a vote. The committee would make a recommendation to the mayor's office and it would come to the council as a motion for a vote. whether to go out or stay the same.
No, we don't have any say so.
We already voted on whether or not there's what the lease is, or the, not the lease, the contract.
Whether to sign the contract?
Whether to sign the contract, that's all we can vote on.
So if we voted not to sign the contract, that's kind of like saying we don't want to go out. Is that right?
We only sign, we
Do I
only
understand that right?
to authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
Is what the contract says.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other town council? Oh, Mr. Soms.
I want to compliment Councilor Marshall on his continuing use of entertaining props. And secondly, no one has said anything about the Ledyard blizzard, so I want to thank Animal Control resident Stephanie Calhoun for taking a picture of the Nile monitor. I want to thank the police and all of the people on Facebook for the continuing education and entertainment. It was great. And for those of you at home who don't know it, Ledyard made the news with their Ledyard blizzard. And I want to thank Councilor Davis for her bunting on Town Hall that said Ledyard blizzard, rest in peace. You can only see that on Facebook.
Some people did not find out amusing.
I did. On a more serious note, since we're not voting on dispatch, I want to make a couple of comments about dispatch, and some of them are advice for all people who present arguments or facts or opinions regarding what the town council or any other body should do. I noticed a common thread throughout all of the discussions on Facebook and the meetings and in all of the documentation. When people support Ledyard Dispatch, they continually said, I can't tell you how many things Ledyard Dispatch does. And I think they should. I think you should take the time, rather than say, I can't tell you, tell us. We want to know. Personally, you don't have to convince me. I use Dispatch all the time. I think they're great. And I could tell you how I use it, and you'd be surprised, but that should be on the list. All of the things, all of the things the dispatch does for Ledyard should be listed out somewhere, whenever you make a case. Secondly, it's my personal opinion, based on my experience on the council, that this entire discussion came up because of two things. One was, we always have to look at ways to save the town money, and regionalization is something we seriously have to consider. Maybe it's not a good idea in this case, but number two, we still have to look at how we run our departments more efficiently, whether they're outsourced, insourced, regionalized, or whatever. And my personal opinion is a lot of this discussion came up years ago because of the use of overtime. I still think if we keep Ledyard Dispatch here in Ledyard, which I support, I still think we have to fix the problem of too much use of overtime. The percentage of dollars that we spend on overtime, and I know something about the reason for it, some of it is valid, but the percentage of dollars in that budget we spend on overtime doesn't make sense to me, in my experience with any company, organization, or other service. That's just my personal opinion about where this all started. Finally, I want to thank all of the people who not only provide emergency services, but I want to thank all the people who took such passionate interest in the whole subject. The Facebook discussions, the attendance at meetings, and the arguments and the presentations. I think it was a really good dialogue and discussion. I thank you for that.
Mr. Eichelberg.
Commercial break. For our viewing audience. Ledyard Fair, September 6, 7, and 8. After you've had your fruit cup, come down and get something good to eat. Corn dogs, root beer floats, Republican tents. Come on down.
Anyone else?
I want to preface my comments with some caveats. I've been talking to dispatch. I've been an observer of the process. And to be honest, I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I was really looking for the results of the process, the Public Safety Commission to provide the data, and then have a decision made. And so, honestly, I did not have an opinion going in. But some of what Councilor Soms I'm a little disappointed in some of the process. And I come from it from looking at fiscal issues and making sure that we're providing the best value. And clearly, the volunteers who invest their time in the town and the people that serve the town, there's a value in what they provide. What I've heard, though, at the end, I'll deal with several points. The Public Safety Commission dealt at the end, asked questions concerning why were we asking for 2 people per shift 24/7. Well, that came from a request for qualifications, which the Public Safety Commission vetted and endorsed and went out for that quote. So that's where it came from. It came from a best practice that the Public Safety Commission endorsed when it went out to consider the outsourcing. I have my perception from the audience is that they didn't like the answer at the end, so they're questioning the entering criteria. The next thing that was brought up was several members of the Public Safety Commission stated unequivocally that if we outsource dispatch, we would be jeopardizing public safety. My only comment to that is really, so that would mean that you would say the residents of Preston jeopardized public safety because they didn't have their own dispatch. What would you say to East Lyme, Waterford, and New Ledyard, who regionalized? They would be jeopardizing public safety. If Volantown came to us, by that logic, they would jeopardize public safety. I don't agree with that. But it's the same criticism that has been laid on us. That it's an emotional plea, not a factual plea. And finally, from the financial side of things, the numbers that have been quoted, yes, that the budget that is in there, that is the number that is in the budget, but it doesn't include everything. It doesn't include the cost of retirement. It doesn't include the cost of health care. It doesn't include a number of costs that are related to that. What I would have preferred, as I said, just an observer of the process, was to put the number on the table that matched the RFQ that went out. There was a request for estimated cost that both Groton and Montville complied with. And according to the mayor, he has yet to receive the same data from our dispatch. And I'll give you an example. If we were going out to pave a road, and we were accepting quotes, there were 3 bidders, 2 of which complied with the requirements for the quote, and the 3rd did not. The 3rd would not be considered at all for the job. Now, having said all that, those are all process things. What I would have preferred is for the number to come out, and then to defend the number, the value that is provided by dispatch. I think it could have been defended. But instead of putting the number out there and defending it, we were left with emotion. And I understand it's an emotional decision. But as I said, I would prefer the process to have followed through. And also, I listen to the impassioned statements of support. I don't deny that that's all valued. I value the volunteers that have put their time into this town. I just wish the process would have come to its conclusion, and then we would have had an opportunity to defend the cost so the residents know what is the actual cost for dispatch compared to what is required. Because if we do regionalize, and it's not Volantown, but another town that requires us to have 2 dispatches per shift, the cost that other town would pay would not likely cover the cost of expanding that dispatch. So those are some of the frustrations as an observer of the process that I wanted to raise. But it by no means demeans or minimizes the value that has been displayed at the different meetings of the Public Safety Commission nor the comments tonight. I just wish we would have had a level playing field compared to the other estimates that were brought in and then defended that price.
I had not planned the comments would happen now, but that's fine. I was personally waiting for the report because I have not seen it. I've seen the report, but I haven't been in attendance for the full presentation, so I'll make my comments after the presentation. Anyone else have any comments at this time? Okay, minute approval.
I'll move them all.
Second.
Roxanne, to call the roll?
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Aye.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Communications, received those all up to date today. There was one referral I know to community services. You received that, Mr. Marshall? Okay, subcommittee reports. Mr. Eichelberg, administration.
Administration met earlier tonight. We made a few appointments. They'll come up later. We also looked at the Register of Voters emergency plan. That'll come up later as well.
Thank you. Any questions for admin? Community services, Mr. Marshall.
We have not done since our last meeting.
Finance, Mr. France.
Nothing to report other than what's in the agenda.
IT, Mr. Soms.
That was great. Information Technology Committee met on Tuesday, August 6th at 5 p.m. At that meeting, we invited all of the members of all of the emergency services departments to continue a discussion about the use of IMC software as a standardized platform for dispatch, fire, and other emergency services. We had a very productive discussion with a lot of participation 2 months or 3 months prior to that, so this was kind of a circle back again. And as it turned out, Lieutenant Finkelstein was there representing the police, but we did not have other participants. We understood that because we pretty much heard and had all the discussion in a previous meeting. So we discussed the use of IMC software by the current departments, and presently it's used by police and dispatch. Both are very satisfied with the platform. LV's, or Ledyard Volunteer Emergency Services, appears committed to EMS charts, and although IMC has an interface to EMS charts, IMC advised it might be difficult to implement for emergency services. Dispatch presently supports 4 fire departments. For those who don't know that, they're Ledyard, Galesbury, Pocatonic, and Preston City. And the committee agreed that since Ledyard Fire and Gales Ferry originally requested an upgrade renewal to their current platform, which is Firehouse, and since both departments at the previous meeting seemed favorably impressed with the demo and IMC's product capabilities and the discussion, it would make sense to take another step in standardizing on our platforms. So the committee voted to recommend that the MIS department request a proposal from IMC to add NFIRS, RMS, and mobile data software link for the fire departments to the current IMC dispatch platform. Then fire could use it instead of Firehouse. And we would ask the MIS director to then present that proposal to the Information Technology Committee, and then we would move it on to finance. We will meet again about this subject, so given that there were no other emergency services groups present, if anyone has comments, and you guys are all ears, if you have comments for us, we meet on the first Tuesday of every month, so that'll be this coming Tuesday. Also, in other areas, MIS reported that they set up a PC workstation in the town council chambers for other committees, commissions, and boards to access IQM2. There it is. The committee also noted the success of the Everbridge mass communication system currently being used by the town for updates and emergency contact to residents via email, phone, and text, things such as road closure notices, emergency preparedness, etc. And we decided to take that item off our agenda. But while I had you on this, for the folks at home, that residents who are not getting or dispatch or not getting Everbridge messages, you can sign up to receive these alerts by phone, by cell phone, by text, and by email. And to do that, you go to the town website at www.town.ledyard.ct.us, click on How Do I, and it will show you Everbridge, and from there on, it's very self-explanatory. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions for RT? Land use, Mr. Dombrowski?
Land use, I did a field walk on July 3rd, which I did not attend, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Sons.
Sure. So in the continuing saga of lizards and beavers, we have been talking about a beaver problem on the pond at Lambtown Extension, and we had a proposal from a gentleman who would install what's called a beaver deceiver to replace some current beaver deceivers in that pond, and I'm glad the LHS students are writing down every word of this. So we had Mr. Skip Lyle come down and talk about how he would install better beaver deceivers. We then had a discussion about the fact that the town would also need to install a new road culvert, because it wouldn't make sense to put in new beaver deceivers without replacing the culvert, which is near the end of its useful life. And we sort of had a plan, and the Director of Public Works presented to Wetlands a plan, but then the residents and landowners in the area were not comfortable with the idea of draining the pond to put in the culvert. So we had a subsequent meeting with the Director of Public Works, with the mayor, and the residents, and we're going to move a little more carefully. It's probably not going to happen this year. We were trying to get it all done before the winter, and it just seemed that we were moving a little bit too quickly, so we're going to spend some more time working on it. But it's always enjoyable to walk on Lambtown Road and see that beautiful scenery there. So that happened on July 3rd. It was a great meeting and board cover.
I know I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it because sometimes I can't help myself. I was watching Duck Dynasty.
And she's admitting it.
It was the episode with the beaver. I could only think of you, and I'll describe how they rid themselves of the beaver, but I won't say that.
That's it. It makes sense the beaver happened.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on this Lambtown Road, because I did drive down there last week, and it is really holding up well.
Yes.
We closed it last winter, and we fixed it in the spring, and this was like the test. And there wasn't any potholes on it at all. My husband was like totally amazed. Usually you get on that road, it's in really good shape.
It's made huge progress.
Yes.
Any other questions for land use? Mr. Eichelberg is stunned that I watched Duck Dynasty.
No, that you admitted it.
Duck Dynasty. Oh, this is getting better and better. I would have picked you as a Duck Dynasty viewer.
You would have?
I want to hear your duck call.
Okay, let's see. Where are we? Board of Education Liaison, Mr. Allen.
Yes, the Board of Education did meet last week. It was their last fairly limited summer agenda. Facilities has been working with the Permanent Municipal Building Committee on getting their RFP requirements in order so that they can be prepared to move ahead with seeking bids for the school projects, the different pricing structures for the various school projects. Sam Kilpatrick made a presentation regarding the final asbestos abatement project at the high school. It included closets, storage areas, classrooms. That's complete. New floor tile is down. He did a slide presentation, a PowerPoint showing classrooms had to get some new ceiling tiles because there was some electrical work that was done overhead, and they also did work in the VOAG wing, correcting some subpar work that was done when the wing was added on, fixing some poor structural concrete and retiling that. They did some minor technology updates at the high school over the course of the summer. They are actually working very proactively for the next accreditation cycle, which is in 2016, so they're already working on putting some recommendations in place, implementing some of those to be ready for the next cycle. 6 teachers retired and 3 resigned from the district, and they've been replaced this year with new teachers. And they approved a 2013-2014 spending plan, which was approved unanimously. And then the final item was they put in for a Connecticut Tech Education Grant, which is seeking to upgrade computers in the elementary school computer labs. So they submitted that grant, and they're waiting for a response, and hopefully they will get it. That is it.
Any questions?
I just have a question. What's the difference between a spending plan and a budget?
Their spending plan, I guess, involved expenditures within the classrooms, allocations to teachers.
So it's not,
for supply
it's not different than the budget. It's just
absolutely
how you're going to spend the budget.
Right, and in this case, they talked about, I think it was a 25% holdback from teachers to make sure that they are in good financial condition going into the end of the year. You're welcome.
Any other questions for our liaison? Let's see, WPC, oh yes. Go ahead.
Managed to make it to EDC this last time around.
Wow.
As I mentioned, they are looking at a Gales Ferry landing philosophy. Looking forward to seeing what they come up with on that. They did also talk about updates on the job lot improvements. Some of those, I'm sure if you've been down Route 12, you've observed some of those. And I guess the second round of improvements should be occurring fairly quickly, and those will be a little bit more extensive. And then thirdly, the farmers market has shrunk a little bit, but it continues to improve, and those that are participating in it have nothing but good things to say about it. So if you have an opportunity, are they done? Or did
They were there today.
Today was it.
Because there was some talk about extending.
Today was their last day, and I've been traveling. I've been traveling to different farmers markets around the area. Well, actually around the state, and even though I'm a city kid, I'm kind of fascinated with farmers markets. So I may come to the next EDC meeting and tell you what I find. And one of the first things I would say is this is their last day, and every farmers market in the area is going until the end of October. Some of them even have winter markets.
And there was some discussion on that at the EDC meeting on why we're ending so soon.
Especially when the apples now are coming out so
Right. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to
Isn't it because we set up for the fair? The new fair gets set up for the fair.
Yeah. Sure, but it's done on.
Oh, and then come back.
Well, they don't actually start, they don't usually start on Wednesdays then.
They start bringing all the stuff, and the right all coming on Wednesday.
But even if you skip one Wednesday.
So you skip, yeah, that makes sense.
You could go right in on that way.
You could put it on the Clark Farm.
Okay, let's see. Now I'm going to go to WPCA liaison.
Go ahead. Liaison Permanent Municipal Building Committee. The committee met on the 5th of August. The first of it was the discuss debate project, which Councilor Allen just briefed us on. The next was the water project. There were two things. The main work for that project was done at that time. The pump station plan was sent to the state, the revised plan. That has since come back approved. And then the Oak Hills Trail extension, which Chairman Diaz, WPCA, talked about earlier, was brought up. The surveyor's report, a surveyor was hired to look at the back end of the property here from the police station. They were still waiting on the results of that survey. The survey should have already started. They did have a meeting, a pre-proposal meeting for the police headquarters facility, which 15 architectural firms showed up to that. That was conducted on the 1st of August. The proposals for that were planned to be received on the 30th of August. Charlie Carno suggested they would interview 4 to 5 of the top firms. There was some discussion of making 3, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 firms that submit bids would be interviewed, and then out of them would come a decision. The mayor commented he'd like the contract signed by the 1st of October. Board of Education school project was then discussed. The facilities committee had reviewed the educational requirements for the district, and the near-term focus of the building committee was to develop the RFP. The plan was to bring a draft to their 9 September meeting, which is the next meeting, have discussion at that point, and then have a special meeting 2 weeks later, ideally to approve that RFP and send it out.
Any questions? Mr. Solomon, PCA.
Okay, thank you. The first thing I want to say about WPCA, we've heard an update from Chairman Diaz tonight. We've got another item on our agenda, so I'll talk about other things. I'll reserve my comments for our action item later. First, I wanted to compliment planning and zoning on passing a water main connection requirement for subdevelopments that are located within 1,000 feet of a water main. This is one of those things where government works very well, very smoothly. It took a long time, as all things should, with government. But what it means is that the town of Ledyard's residents have invested $15 million in water mains in the past 15 years or so. And being close to a Ledyard water main means that you have fire hydrants. Fire hydrants means that you have fire protection. And the suggestion was made to the planning chair that perhaps we should have some kind of a requirement so that when a subdevelopment goes in near a water main, that there be some rule about whether they be required to be connected to it to provide fire hydrants for those new houses. That process took about 2 years, maybe a little longer. It went through planning and zoning, and it was passed. And so now, if a new subdivision goes in within 1,000 feet of a Ledyard public water supply, they are required to connect. So I think that was an example of your town government working very well, and I want to thank the chair of planning and the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Secondly, I just want to report on a couple of things from the last WPCA meeting, which was last night. I was not able to attend, but I wanted to thank Mr. Mark Bancroft for providing an action letter. We're seeing a lot of significant positive progress coming out of the actions and the processes used by the WPCA, including this action letter. I want to compliment the WPCA on approving the water rate increase, as well as the sewer, recommending the water rate increase and approving the sewer rate increase. They followed a good process. They held 2 public hearings. And I want to mention, as Chairman Diaz mentioned, that there was very little public comment from the ratepayers about the rate increase itself. Most of the comment was about the process and the finances of the WPCA, but I think all were in agreement that we need to do something to put the WPCA back on a firm financial footing. And I think, everything else I can reserve comment for the appeals draft. So thank you. That's my report.
Any questions, Mr. Solomon? Report of the mayor.
Okay, thank you. Tax collection was completed as of the end of July, and we got some statistics back. As you know, we instituted some different ways that we could pay, that the residents could pay taxes. We had some new ways that they could do that. The use of the lockbox, that's where you literally mailed it in with the envelope you had, and I really wish more people would do that. I know in this day and age we hate using postage stamps. I hate using postage stamps for the principle of it. I'd much rather go to my computer and send a check to the tax collector. But the use of the lockbox in that sense was down slightly. But 3% of customers use the new web payments feature, which is a good thing. What we're trying to do is really get more and more people to use alternate ways to pay bills the way they do at home with other bills. And there are ways that we're trying to do that. The town has invested to do a better job there. It really, we certainly love to see our citizens at the town hall, but it's a little frustrating sometimes. Especially, and I probably told the story, when people tell you, about something, that they're not going to spend money on a postage stamp to mail, and I ask them, well, how much money did it cost you to drive here to the town hall? It was probably $4 or $5. So again, we're trying harder. We need to do a better job of publicity. Credit card payments were down 1%. We suspect that's because it's cheaper to pay the other ways. Overall payments at the town hall, however, were down 1.5%. So I think we're making progress there, but we need to do better. We also need to look into online WPCA payment capability. That is a big issue that we need to do. People need to have the ability to pay that online. There was a Yankee Institute survey. Yankee Institute is an organization in Connecticut that looks at the way government operates. Recently, or in the past couple of years, they came up with this Sunlight website where you could go on there and find out what everybody in the state, in terms of state workers, make. And they're starting to come down a little bit now to the municipal level. I didn't know anything about this survey. Maybe someone else in the town did. Ledyard came out and got a 52.5 out of a potential, I think, 110 or 120. We were 65th out of 169, so that's not bad. And what they're doing is they're giving you 8 weeks. They made recommendations. They're giving you 8 weeks to go back and make changes to the way you present information on the website. There are some easy changes that we've already made on there. Some of the things we don't necessarily agree with, but it's really just putting things out there and giving you an opportunity to know what your government is doing and keeping it very transparent. So again, I think we did well. I think we can do better. I've urged our department heads to look at things we can do, and so hopefully you'll be seeing better results there the next time. The Board of Ed secretaries ratified a new contract. It was actually a contract extension, and with the Board of Ed's approval next week, which I assume we will get, essentially we have completed all employees now in terms of the defined benefits pension plan, and the benefits pension plan will be closed. However, I think there's more the town needs to do in terms of instituting an aggressive enrollment program. You know, there's all kinds of discussion, debate about DB versus DC plans, but the fact of the matter is they're only as good as you make those plans. The town has done a very good job of offering plans plus optional plans that people can use. And but we need to do a better job of letting people know that they have a responsibility to use that plan, and that we want to help them with that. So that's something that I'm working through the pension committee on. The blight ordinance, there was some publicity recently because Robbie just passed one. We've had the blight ordinance on the books for a few months now. Maybe it's more than a few months. I have selected a blight enforcement officer, and I have one individual who's interested in being on the blight appeals board. It's very parallel to zoning, where you have the actual official, and then you have an appeals board that can go through. So I need another person to round out that 3-person board, and I hope to appoint that shortly, and then convene a meeting with all those responsible. You know, the zoning official, building official, my office, the enforcement officer, the appeals board, someone from the council, again, to define responsibilities, because we do have things we need to do out in the community in terms of blight, and I think there are things that are clearly that we can act on. So I look to get that going soon. Today I had the opportunity to visit Covanta, which is the plant in Preston, the waste-to-energy plant, and I was there with Congressman Courtney, several of the local CEOs, Senator Kathy Austin. It was an incredible facility. If you ever have an opportunity to go and see that facility and how it operates, and keep in mind the fact, some of us who were involved in the early stages of going from a landfill to a town-wide collection to a waste recovery resource system, it has been, I believe, the greatest success story in terms of budgeting in our town. And then with recycling and single stream, there's even more we can do. The problem is that the state or the federal EPA is coming up with some rules which could endanger the operation of that plant. If their rules were strictly enforced,
we would have to shut down the plants in this state. Connecticut has no landfills. Everything is done through these type of plants. It's an incredible record for the state of Connecticut. It's one of the things we do right. But we emphasize to Congressman Courtney and to Senator Austin that you can't create these types of rules. The emissions from that plant have been brought down to incredibly low levels. But the rule that they're proposing is if you miss one level, you're in violation. And Congressman Courtney was optimistic that with the new secretary that we could make some headway. The other thing was there are things we could do. For instance, all of the ash from that plant is shipped up to Putnam, to a landfill. You may remember the fuss that we had about finding a place for that. That ash could be used for the base for many of our roads. You could keep it right here in southeastern Connecticut. That would reduce the cost. Not permitted. We ship the ferrous and non-ferrous residual that comes out of there. 60 tons, I don't know, per day, per month, something like that, to New York State. Why? Why don't we keep those things here? Why don't we process them here? So there are things that we need to do better, even in that system. So with that, I will get to the presentation that everyone's been waiting for, the main feature. I want to say as an introduction that I believe it or not, I appreciate that you're all here tonight. I really do. I was concerned that maybe because of last night's meeting, people would come tonight and somehow think that the statement was made was over. Because I want everyone to hear what I have to say, and the basis of what I have to say, I hope I can express it clearly to let you know, hopefully, where I'm at, what I need, and what we need to do in making whatever decision we make. So with that, I'm going to, I know it's maybe not fair to the council because of everyone here, probably the council has seen the least of this, but it's been out there in the public domain. Some of the first few slides I'm going to go through rather quickly because these are slides that are taken from Chairman McGuckin's presentation in June. And it goes through really the timeline. As you can see, the timeline here goes back through the beginning of my term, but that was not the beginning of this process. As some of you know, because I've said it before, this started 4 or 5 or 6 years ago with some discussions on the council, some of the things. And I said that in going back and reading some of the older emails from 6 or 5 years ago, some of the discussions that were being had with other towns, there's been a lot of work that's been done on this, and that's a good thing. Again, going through the timeline, and it brings us kind of up to the future. It doesn't include some of the recent meetings we had, the 2 Public Safety Commission meetings, and then, again, some of the additional parallel efforts that have been going on. OSET was mentioned. Sean McGuckin, myself, and Russell Shaw met with a representative from OSET. I had someone unsolicited show up in my office after that meeting from OSET, really doing a survey of what are individual towns doing. This wasn't me talking to OSET. This was OSET coming to me. They were going to every town in the state and saying, what are you doing? Why? Because, as many of you said, the state doesn't know what they're doing with that. And unfortunately, that typically puts towns at a disadvantage. If we knew the future, we could make very, very good decisions. But we don't. And the state is dragging its feet on this to a certain extent. I have been meeting with, as I've said, many of the areas, the surrounding areas, their CEOs, to talk to them about what they do. Not just about dispatch, but about many emergency services issues. We know that, as was mentioned, there have been contacts with Voluntown, doing some actual testing of the system, and it's very positive. We understand that. I've been meeting with, again, CEOs from the towns listed there: Waterford, Groton, Montville, Huntsville, North Stonington. I'm going to Reading on September 11th. Reading is a unique town. It's a town about our size, maybe a little smaller, but it's a town that within the past 8 years went to an independent police department. That's very rare. Before that, I don't know what was the last town to do that. That doesn't happen often. To get some insight there. So, I believe that I'm doing the things I need to do. I've been speaking with the state police, listening to what they're doing and going to briefings from them. And then there's other communication that I've had. And those of you that know me, those of you that have dealt with me in the past almost 2 years, I try my best at communication. I'm not always successful. I don't always communicate the way I need to. But this is a list of the meetings from my records, from my notes that I've had concerning this subject. With the exception of 2 there, one being a meeting I had where Chief Dispatcher Paula Smith came to see me. Every one of those meetings was initiated by me. Every one of those meetings was initiated by me. I'll go a step further. There has not been one request from anyone to meet with me that has been denied. Unfortunately, there has not been one request to meet with me. Now, you can disagree with that. I keep pretty good records. Again, those of you that know me, those of you in the community know that I meet with everyone. Someone knocks on my door, someone calls my assistant, someone comes in off the street, I will meet with that individual. I am trying to get everyone's input on this very, very important decision. This slide, again, is an excellent slide. It's an excellent summary. And again, it talks about economics. And again, it's not just the economics of now that we're looking at, it's the economics of now and the future. Economically speaking, Groton is the least expensive option. Operationally speaking, the best option is keep control of the dispatch center in Ledyard. I echo everything that's been said about our dispatch center here. But I can't just look at the now. I appreciate Councilor Sound's comments about, we're good. I'll paraphrase him. We're good, but we're never good enough. Every department in this town, and we have good, very good, and excellent departments in this town. Every department in this town is looking at the way they do business. We've made some significant changes, mainly in technology. We plan to make more changes in the way we do business, because we will not survive as a town unless we make these types of decisions. The state is the best proof of that. Montville is a viable option. We know that. Montville is a viable option. We know. I meet with these people monthly in terms of all the CEOs of different towns, and we share ideas in the car. Montville is being very aggressive, with good reason. Montville just invested $6.5 million in an emergency services building, and they are dispatching not even all of Montville. They are very aggressive, and they're looking for things, and they're looking to do certain things, and they're looking for partners in that. They have put in a bid on the KX system to assume responsibility for KX, which is a major undertaking. And, that's aggressive. That's being very aggressive. There are towns that are doing those types of things. Factors to be considered: total cost of service. Total cost of service, not what's in the budget. The budget does not represent the total cost of service. When the council, I appreciate the comments that were made there also. Another thing besides personnel costs, we are going to have to make a major investment in our new police building. I still don't know what that number is. I need to have that information. That goes into this. We're going to make that. The taxpayer is going to make that investment, not Preston, not Voluntown, and not the state. The town is going to have to make that investment and spend that money. Current opportunities for regionalization, again, either here with other towns joining us or in joining neighboring services. What are the opportunities now? And this is the most important point. This is the most important point. Positioning Ledyard for the future. Comparing the costs, again, the estimated cost. Now again, everything that we've done in this process has been transparent. There is one piece of information that has not been made public, and that is the results of the RFQ. And the reason that has not been made public is in fairness to our dispatch center. Because I do not have confirmed numbers from our dispatch center. And I am not going to release the figures until I can say that each individual service has given me those numbers. I think that's only fair. Now, I've asked for those numbers. I don't have them. Again, the cost, when I talk about comparable costs, again, it's staffing of 2 dispatchers 24/7. It allows for staffing of Ledyard's police facility 24/7 because, from what I gather from other departments, in today's technology, in today's world, we need to have personnel for many reasons in that building. The least expensive thing is to use people you have there already. The most expensive is to use extra police officers to do that. Different towns have different ways that they do that. It assumes that the changeover costs, whether we go to another town comes to us, that those changeover costs qualify for state grants. That's a question mark we might have if Voluntown were to join us, because I don't know how the state treats that when you take a town from another regional district. Again, there's no allowance in there for capital, and we put an inflation factor of 3% on these costs. Now, I made this, it's been taken out of context, not taken out of context. It's the truth. Cost is not a driving force for regionalization. It's not. When you look at these costs, if you look at them, and if our figures hold up, yes, you're not going to get a $200 reduction in your property taxes if we go to any of these towns. That is absolutely correct. But again, it's cost, but it's what is the long-term cost and value to our town. Total cost of service, what's the liability of maintaining or regionalizing? Staffing and cost requirements, again, if we regionalize here in town, we're not going to offset our costs, our capital costs, by doing that. Again, if we went using the RFQ standard. The requirements for regional PSAP, and again, be careful what you say. We do not know the definition of a regional PSAP. We know it today. Today it's very simple, 3 towns. Get 3 towns together, a regional PSAP. But you look at legislation, you talk to people. I've heard 3 towns, I've heard 30,000 people, I've heard 40,000 people. The state, when they finally get their act together and do whatever they're going to do, they're going to look at the numbers. And they're going to make sure if they're going to get any savings at all, you have to set the bar high enough so that you capture, if you say 3 towns, you may not capture the savings you're looking for. Again, what is the impact? Supposing, and I'm going to say the what ifs, because that's part of my job is to look at the what ifs. If we make a gamble now that we're going to go to 3 towns, Voluntown, and Voluntown is by no means a definite. And then at some point in the future, we lose funding, we lose subsidies. What does that mean? That's a question I've asked. I need an answer to that. Somebody tell me, what does it mean? How much money do we expect to lose in that? Now, we may not have the answer to that because we don't know how the state is going to change that. And this is a very important point. Dispatch service is required in support of an independent police department. This decision on dispatch is not being made in a vacuum. There are other emergency services decisions that are hinging on the decision we make here, and we need to get it right. I'm going to give you an example. You may think it's far-fetched. I think it's very applicable because I was part of it. and I blame myself for part of it. Back in the 1990s, the police, ambulance, and fire came to the town council and wanted to build 3 buildings. And I said, we're not going to build 3 buildings. We're going to build a building. Before the council could do anything, I don't remember how it shook out, but the police went and bought the building they had down there. Okay. Police bought that building. Statements were made. I don't remember them. Somebody told me statements were made. I don't know if it's true or not. That building will supply all of our needs well into the future. Somebody mentioned 25 years. That building will take care of it. That decision cost the town of Ledyard $6 million. Now, of course, hindsight is always great. People go back and you look. At the time, we could have fixed that problem. We could have put the police up at that building for $500,000. We only paid $3 million for the building. We could have solved that problem. We didn't. We made the wrong decision in doing that. We need to look at the repercussions. Now, $6 million is real money. That's real money. Now you start getting into the $200 a year, you might say. That's real money. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but we need to get it right. The decisions to be made on the building, I remember my 3 points: dispatch, police building, and the future of our police department. Those are all intertwined. That's why it's so important for me to get all the information I need, because there are other decisions that are hinging on this. Now, I just want to go back because I went over it quickly. I am not, and I don't think I've ever said, we need 2 dispatchers 24/7 in our building. I don't think I've ever said that. What I'm saying is, we need to know what the cost of that is if we're going to make a comparison, and if in the future we need to do that, we need to talk about that now. You can't put these decisions off and say, well, if it happens, it happens. You can't do that. You have to understand, we have to think long term. We signed 3-year labor agreements with our unions. You don't get it right, it's difficult to make changes that you may need to make. Again, I'd rather make those decisions sitting around the table than sitting in my office by myself. And I believe that I've asked to be able to do that. Again, current opportunities for regionalizing. I'm going to go through this quickly because the search for interested towns has gone on for 5 years. The only town I know that's interested right now is Voluntown. I'm not even going to ask anymore if you have another town to give me the name, because I've asked that question. I've asked people that question directly to them when they've thrown a town at me. I have never received a name or a number of any town. And I've spoken with CEOs in every town in southeastern Connecticut. So I'm not even going to ask for that information anymore because it's obviously not available. We've gotten a favorable response from Voluntown. That's not going to be till I think it's the end of the year. Surrounding towns are or shortly will be regionalized. Now, you can talk about what the criteria is. Trust me when I say that Groton, with a dispatch or a dispatch region in the area of 50 to 60,000 people, and East Lyme, Waterford, and New London, with a regional population of between 50 to 60,000 people, is a regional dispatch center. Let's not try to kid ourselves there. When you look at that, and just quickly go through this map, you all know what the area looks like. We need to look towards the future. We are basically surrounded by, or will shortly be surrounded by, regional centers. And that's the thing we need to look at. Does that mean that we must become a regional center? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Does that mean we shouldn't go with the current definition? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. The fact is, we need to make this as a sober decision and as a deliberate decision, knowing what's around us and knowing what other towns are doing.
Mayor, can I ask you a question about this map?
Yep.
I was here for up to about this point, and then I had to leave for another meeting when you made the presentation. And when you put this map up, people in the audience laughed. What am I missing? Why is this funny?
I recognize that there's only two things I can think of. One is that when I say what I think is happening around us, or when I define what regional centers are, I mean, we know Quinnebog Valley, we know KX, we know the towns on the other side of the river are regional. That maybe people disagree with that. All I can say is I find this map to be very sobering. It's been said, and it is emotional issue. It is emotional, and I know we're trying to stay away from that. But yes, we are talking about jobs. There's no doubt about it. We're talking about jobs throughout the region. Throughout the region, these regionalized areas are looking at jobs, and I take that very seriously, and that's a very sobering thing. And just personally speaking, if it's my job that's at risk, and if it's our jobs that we're concerned about, I'd be the first one at the table and the last one to leave. And that's the way I think we need to approach this. So I don't know if I can answer that question except say, I see that map as sobering. Maybe some don't. Positioning Ledyard for the future, again, we need to look at the future cost of service, equipment, and 911. That doesn't mean again today. We all remember, those of us that were around, when we moved from the basement of the town hall down to the police station. We didn't take the old equipment with us. It would have been foolish to do that. We think we're in better shape now, but I need to know what that is. I need to know what those costs are. I'm not any type of expert with this type of thing. I know nothing about it. I depend on others to provide that information. We need to look at staffing and scheduling. I appreciate the positive comments that have been made, that we can do better. I have some ideas how we can do better. I'd like to hear other people's ideas on that, because those are contractual obligations. Those are not things that we just say in the future, hey, you know what, we think we need to change it, but we don't want to spend more money. You can't do that. You can't do that. If we decide to change the staffing in the future, you basically have no options except to follow what's contracted between the town and the unions. Again, facility and capitalization, the lack of unaffiliated towns. There are, that I know of, 3 unaffiliated towns in this area. Stonington, if you look at Ledyard and Preston, those are not agreed, and Montville. Those are the only unaffiliated towns in our area. You have to question, why is that? And then, again, competition by other area providers. And then, the opportunities for regionalization are there now. There's no doubt about it. Does it mean taking risks? Does it mean doing some things with the best information you have? Yes, it does. Yeah, 3 options. Maintaining the status quo. I don't think this, I seem to be hearing that there's a general agreement that the status quo is not good enough. It certainly is not good enough for any other department in this town. I will say that now. It's never going to be good enough until the day I leave to have the status quo. It certainly is not in this area. Again, at least Ledyard, lowest cost service right now with the status quo. Again, the state may not mandate changes. And again, the presence in the police facility is a major positive for the system we have now. That's a major, major positive. Option 2, and that is work again, to work with our staffing, work out schedule changes. There's a general agreement, and this was originated not with me, but with the Public Safety Commission, that our staffing does not meet best practices. It doesn't meet the standard in the RFQ. And again, instituting changes in the future would not be cost effective, because there is no way you're going to bring on a town that would ever pay for those types of changes. And then option 3, to negotiate with all 3 of the respondents to the town's RFQ and talk to them about their proposals and what they can do. Those were raw estimates; they weren't firm estimates, and talk to all of them. In closing, I'm going to say that, really, 2 of the options, actually all 3 of the options, deal with dispatch that we have right here. The third option has, also talking with other towns, but that is my emphasis. I want to get this, and I don't know that it'll be settled in one maneuver, one way or another. This is going to be a process. But I'd like to move the process along, and I need help to do that. Thank you.
Any questions of the mayor?
Thank you. Mayor, you mentioned on slide 8 that Groton is the least expensive.
Yes.
And then you said that Ledyard is lowest cost service. Can you explain the difference?
You went to
So in option
option
1, you said maintain status quo, Ledyard is lowest cost service.
Okay, sorry, which slide was that again?
So that's 13 and what is that 8?
Slide 8. Okay.
I think that's Ledyard's.
Groton gave us a range. Okay. Montville gave us something that was comparable to what we have now, and Ledyard's costs now are comparable. If you compare RFQ requirements, Ledyard's is the most expensive.
Okay, so we're least expensive at Ledyard now because we don't meet the
Status
requirements.
quo, yes, status quo.
Right, thank you.
We're not the least expensive, Groton is the least expensive.
That was the answer I said.
Mr. Eichelberg, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Let me ask a question. Do you have all the information you need to make a decision?
No.
Tell us specifically what you need to make a decision.
I sent out the costs that were put together by Russ Shaw, which was what he calculated the RFQ cost for our dispatch center to be. And I sent that information with a request to dispatch and asked that they look at those, and they may be correct, but I'm not going to go out with something, so I need that. In addition to that, there was a letter that I wrote to the police and copied a whole list of our emergency services individuals, union representatives, and asked them, and this was more general, it wasn't just dispatch, it was the future of emergency services. Lieutenant Finkelstein put a response together, and I said, okay, well, that's his responses. Let me send it out to everyone. I sent that out. I asked for an answer to both of those requests by August 9th. They have not received any of them, in fairness, from anyone.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
I've got just two brief questions. Mayor, Preston pays $25,000 a year to us now. Is that a quote-unquote market rate comparatively town size?
They pay $25,000, and then we get 50 to so thousand. So the contract was signed with Preston, I believe, it was about 15 years ago. The contract is now expired. I'm holding off on doing anything with it. The only comparable I can bring up is North Stonington that pays significantly more than that.
The other question was, what prevents, if we build a new facility here in Ledyard, what prevents us from being like Montville, where they're sitting there with their arms out saying, come to us, and they've got nobody. So now we've got this grand new dispatch facility, and we're thinking we're going to bring towns in, and here we are with no towns coming to us.
Well, I can only speculate, as many of us in here are hoping, that at the end of the year, when Voluntown comes up, that Voluntown joins us, so at least we're sitting here with three towns. I mean, we do have an advantage. We have Preston with us. Is that good enough? I mean, keep in mind the fact that Ledyard, Preston, and Voluntown are less than 25,000 people. So you're banking on the fact that, yes, you're there. And at that stage, now I have certainly I've asked the Public Safety Commission, and I've asked the council now for their help.
You know, I think I've done everything I can to do it, but there are contacts that people have that I don't have with the emergency services personnel in other towns. If they know of something, they're certainly going to do it. You have to understand, it gets a little awkward, you know, when you start stealing towns from other municipalities. I mean, these are people that we work very closely with.
Thank you.
I just want to comment that I don't think you would be stealing towns. I think if you provide a better service, either at a cheaper rate or a better service, and the town chooses to come with you, you're not stealing them. We all shop around for better services and to receive a better value. So I wouldn't call it stealing the town.
Thank you. Okay. I will correct my grammar on that. Yes, but you know, yeah. I mean, if I were North Stonington for what they're paying, I'd go out to bid. Now, you know, and then defend better service. Better service is very often in the eye of the beholder in these other towns. You know, you hear, well, some people are very unhappy. You know, you have to define that.
I can never remember this. Stonington does their own dispatch? Yes. Are they a candidate?
There was significant discussion, as some of you may remember, about 4 years ago, in literally combining police forces and dispatch. I've had several discussions with Stonington. I was disappointed that they did not respond to our RFQ. Stonington would be an incredible synergy for Ledyard, either with us dispatching them, or them us. So, no, Stonington they're a unique town.
You know, I'm sorry. I keep thinking about what you said, Mr. France, and when you talk about Stonington, and when people speak here about why we should keep dispatch in Ledyard, we would hope that they don't listen to that, because for the very reasons we're saying we shouldn't outsource, wouldn't Stonington say the same thing? Their people know their community. I mean, we kind of get ourselves in a box by making those arguments. It's just kind of interesting.
Well, as Councilor France mentioned, I think we get in a problem when we start talking about how how the best thing is to dispatch your own town when you then go and you try. I mean, I don't think there's a town in southeastern Connecticut that if I got them to come here, that any one of us would say we're endangering lives in that town. So, you know, I think we ought to be really careful about how we say those things. I mean, I could put the map up again. Look at the distance between Norwich to wherever QV goes, or KX. And you got some pretty good-sized towns in there. Colchester, Salem, and others. You know, I've never heard one of those CEOs complain that their people were in danger. And obviously their service is not as good as ours. So, I mean, somebody doesn't consider this to be an issue. And just one other thing I just want to point out, keep in mind, in fact, also Stonington has a police department. Towns that have police departments, and I've spoken with towns with their own police departments, you are not going to get a town with its own police department to go anywhere. It will not happen. It does not happen.
The people in the back of the room don't agree with that. So could you clarify that? I mean, I'm watching people rolling their eyes and giggling, and so obviously there's an issue.
I think I'm trying to be open. You know, I've had conversations with several towns that have their own police department. They are not going to come to have Ledyard dispatch them. You know, now, can I say off the top of my head that there's an independent police department in Connecticut that doesn't do its own dispatching? If someone has that information, tell me. Again, I'll go to any town that I think is interested. The town of Stonington, I have met with them several times. The town of Stonington is not coming to Ledyard. Now, when we have a shiny new police building up there, you know, I'll be the marketing king. That's going to be in 2015. You know, what's going to be left in 2015 for us to do?
Well, you just brought up an interesting point. If other towns that have independent forces don't want to outsource dispatch, you want an independent police department. Why would you want to outsource dispatch?
I made the statement that this decision is not being made in a vacuum, and that there are many things that hinge on this decision, and I'll leave it at that.
This is not just a decision about dispatch.
Yes.
So, back to an earlier comment, Mayor. Would it be fair to paraphrase your comments that you requested a proposal from Ledyard Dispatch and you don't have one? Is that what you said?
I just look, the numbers have been put together. I just need confirmation, you know, in fairness to them.
Yeah.
Fairness that they agree with the numbers that were put together.
So, Mr. Shaw provided numbers. You haven't gotten any confirmation of those numbers from?
I provided all of the spreadsheets, all of the background, all of that data.
And then would it be fair to say that you will not be making a decision until you have all of that information? Is that a fair statement?
I can make that statement, but that would make it a very easy thing. Just don't give me the information, and then we'll stay with the status quo.
Well,
again, respect. You know, there are just other decisions that have to be made. They hinge on this decision. If I don't make this decision, it's going to be difficult to make other decisions.
Two questions. First, do you know what Voluntown is currently paying for their service, and do you expect if they came to us it would be a different number? And second, if you did, the next time that the 5-year contract with Preston is negotiated, raise the price of what you charge, what the town charges for that service to a more marketable rate. Have you had any conversation with Preston about that and what their decision might be?
I had a conversation with Preston today, but just very high level. The answer to the first question is easy. I'm told by Sean and Russ, who were up in Voluntown, that they pay $5,000 to QV. I'm not sure what the subsidy is that QV gets for them, and I'm not sure whether that subsidy would come to us. But that's the point I make about any town like that we brought on would not pay us if we needed additional staffing. I don't think we do. For that town, I don't think we do. Preston is a delicate situation. You know, do we really want Preston going out and starting to ask for prices? I sure don't want them going over to Montville and asking for prices. So that's very, very delicate. I think we've looked at the numbers. You know, you can go on number of calls or things like that, and I know those types of things have been looked at. Personally, I think it's fair. Just, you know, and so again, I don't know that there's anything there. And again, supposing, and I've thought about it. Supposing we ask Preston for $5,000 a year in the next 5-year contract, $5,000 each year. You know, that doesn't buy the pencils and paper. You know, so it's a synergy. It's something that's respected. It's not what we're really looking for if we're really going to impact the cost and the ability to do other things here in town.
Yes. I think I want to make a comment about this thing of endangering lives. It's my understanding, and I too am an observer. I haven't ignored meetings, but I am paying attention. And from what I know about IMC, there have been comments made about the fact that the benefit of Ledyard is the dispatchers know the history of each address that you go to. They know it's in the house. Well, my understanding is that's a function of IMC software and the data that we put in the database. So the software will let you do it. If you don't put the data in the database, they're going to have to remember it or they're not going to have it. So here's my point. That seems like an advantage to Ledyard, that we're using a database that has comments in it about the town. I would assume then that that's probably true for Preston too, since we're using IMC dispatch. Preston, excuse me. The other comment I want to make is that I believe that some of our dispatchers are part-time and they work for multiple towns. And all of these people, volunteer or not, are professionals. And I just don't buy the argument that you're going to get a better deal because you're in Ledyard and you're going to get a bad deal in another town. I do understand that the dispatchers from Ledyard may know more about Ledyard, but I think there's a fair amount of crossover, and these are professionals we're talking about, and they're emergency professionals, so they're not going to provide lesser service to another town. I do buy the idea that the state police may be incompetent to the point that they can't dispatch correctly, but that's a whole different argument, so that's it.
Any other questions? I would like to take a break so we can let the students leave.
You guys get gold stars.
9 o'clock will resume in 5 minutes.
First day of school.
Thank you, though. It's very sweet.
I told you that before. I really appreciate that because I think
he was standing here for somebody else. I can't imagine what else he'll do.
I'll debate you on that.
That's what.
I didn't give a lot of credit.
Like, you already said yes to something, but we didn't try to go
I've been in there a lot. I won't run here probably during the day. I do, I remember what I I think the only Well, that looks good for an old lady. Oh, you don't.
Yes. But I only So you're just kind of like comparing and interpreting what's there and stuff? But it still gives the New England feel, okay? But I can do that as a landowner.
Everybody needed a little break, so. Oh, sorry. Ready? We're ready. Okay. Any other questions, comments on that, on the dispatch issue? Okay. Old business. Would you like to handle that for Mr. WPCA? That's okay. I can show it to you right here. That's why I bring the paper back up.
Yeah.
Okay. I move to approve the modification of the Elgin Heights water main project to include a water main extension serving Oak Hills Trail in accordance with the town council's authority to modify the scope of the project granted in the bond documents.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Eichelberg.
Jim mentioned a number of flag lots that were going to be quite a ways out and would be looking at significant cost to connect in. Are they going to be given the same considerations?
Yes.
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 Okay.
We'll let him finish this so people know what he's going to say.
The same considerations that the folks on
117
got as far as mitigating costs.
Yes. The discussion is to use the same distances. So beyond a certain distance, you're not required to pay. You get full relief. And within a certain range, you get partial relief.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same situation.
Although I remember Mr. Maslin saying that in fact none of those lots would get.
Yes, so the rules are the same, but that's very true.
None of them will get full deferment, but some get partial.
They would get partial, yeah. None of them are far enough.
I'm looking at the GIS, there's like 6 lots that would get partial.
But they will get consideration.
The house is greater than 500 feet from the road.
Yeah. I realize that a lot of the residents on this street aren't interested in the water, but the reason that we've laid water in the ground in pipes hasn't been because everybody wanted it. It's been because we're in the area and we can do it. And the most compelling reason to do it now is if we don't, it'll probably never happen. We're right there. There's a connection to put the pipe in. There's actually more than enough money to do it left in the bonding. And in the past, what we've tried to do is lay as much pipe in the ground as we can for the money we have. As Chairman Diaz says, we're not trying to spend all the money, but we typically try to lay as much pipe as possible because we don't do that many water projects. It's a long time between them, and if we can get water to a street, I mean, they may not want the water or need the water now, but what happens in 10 or 15 years? And then they're going to want it, and we're not going to do it. So I think the most compelling reason to do it now is because we're right there and we can.
Well, there's the added benefit of fire protection.
Correct.
Mr. Summers. So Chairman Diaz said this is a very difficult decision, and I totally agree with him. Right now, as I sit here, I don't know where I lean. So I just want to provide a little background. I was at the hearing where the residents got up and spoke against, and the ones who were there were all against it. And basically they said, I don't want it, I don't need it. And what I said to them, I'll say tonight, you may not need it now, but the water systems that we have in Ledyard, that Ledyard put in the ground, we have because wells fail. So the difficult decision for us is to honor the current wishes of the current residents who have wells, who don't want water, and say that there was a fire hydrant right up there on Avery Hill Road. If we honor their wishes and wells fail several years in the future, not all of those residents will be there. And the residents the future town council will face will be saying, you had the chance, why didn't you do it? Plus, if there's a fire in one of those houses, and that house is too far from that hydrant up on Avery Hill Road, the same question, why didn't you do it when you could? You had the money. The problem is if we do it, we're putting water out there, we're charging assessments to residents who really don't perceive that they need it and have also said they don't want it. So this is a tough one.
But in the past, when we expanded any of the other projects, we didn't ask the residents if they wanted the water or not. We had the money, we went out Clark Lane, Woodridge, part of Woodridge, and the people that we didn't get to asked why didn't we get theirs.
Exactly.
We stopped.
Exactly.
So I don't think, if we didn't ask in the past, I don't know that we should, I don't want to discount the people's opinion, but if we didn't use the opinion in the past, I don't know that we should be looking at that as a reason to do or not do this extension, because we haven't gone out and asked people in the past. Right. When we did put in water on Schuylkill Road, and it turned out to be potable, which we did not know when we did the project, we made a different determination on how those people would be assessed or not assessed, because that was an after the fact. They didn't know that they were going to get water and that there would be an assessment when the project was voted on. I recognize that this is adding something that people didn't know at the time they voted either, but if you don't do it now, it'll never happen. And I think that fact alone, you're right, 15, 20 years from now, who knows what's going to happen with people's wells. And if I could have water on my street, I'd be voting for it even if I don't need it.
Let me say this.
I don't need it.
I don't know why we didn't have it in the original plan. I remember the discussion only because I know this street pretty well because I represented the builder at the time. And I remember the discussion being, well, they don't need it because they have these long lots and it's a newer subdivision, although it's not that newer. So I'm really not sure why it wasn't included. If somebody's well fails there, they could probably drill 2 wells in the amount of money it's going to cost them to hook up.
Yes, that's true.
That's what I'm having a problem with. And if I lived on a or some of these multi-acres, I remember that some of them being multi-acres. I mean, that's kind of like why you buy a multi-acre lot. You don't want to be bothered with the city getting involved in your business. So I sort of have a problem with this. I also have a problem in that they were never asked, and I realize maybe other people were never asked. But this isn't like a street off of Route 12 where they're on little half-acre lots with septics and wells. This is the reason you move to a rural. I would be really annoyed if I were them, and I'd be probably making a lot of noise. And The only thing that could, I'm sort of here right now, the only thing that could flip me in the yes direction is the fire protection. Because I think there is a benefit, certainly there is a benefit. Not there might be a benefit, there is a benefit. But I also think Jim mentioned, and he's right, you know, you have public hearings and you invite people to hear about the project, but these people were never included in the public hearings, and then suddenly, oh, by the way, it's going to cost you this much money, and if you want to hook up, it's going to be another $1 bazillion more. I have some difficulty with that, so I'm probably not going to support this. Yes?
The lots, as you spoke of, go from 1.6 to 3.56 acres, so they're not small lots by any means. And the other thing that I was kind of stuck on was Jim mentioned that one resident approached him and said, why don't we have public water? That's 1 out of 14. So one person out of 14 came forward and said, why don't we have it? So now everybody's going to get it. And people may say, well, we don't need it. But when the time comes for some of these houses to turn over, if they have public water in the street, they may be required to hook up as part of the condition to them transferring the property. And that is an added cost. So they've got the assessment, and then they've got a connection fee, and the connection will go anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 to it could be as much as $10,000 to get back to some of those rear lots. And I do have reservations on that.
So let me add a little more information. I'm not sure it's factual. It's more my opinion. Here's what is fact. If you put a main in the ground, you size it to the need. You don't want to put an 8-inch main down Oak Hills Trail because it'll be too much water sitting idle, losing its chlorination. So that says you have to put probably a 2-inch main down Oak Hills Trail. 30 years from now, if land beyond or around Oak Hills Trail were developed, you'd have to dig it up again if that were the access for a main. So it's not like we have to do this now, and once it's done forever. It's not done forever. If there's more development around there, we may have to do it again. At least the main.
Right, and there is a big parcel nearby. So
yeah.
And if there was development, it could be a requirement of developer.
Yes. Yes. So,
do we know what the assessment, the average assessment would be for the owners?
I could guess, but I probably should. I could say historically, other projects have spent about $4,800 for an assessment, and a connection is about $3,000 to $4,000.
So it's a nice piece of change.
Yeah. And if it were my house, I'd be really upset.
Do I understand also that they don't have to pay that, it just gets attached as a lien to the property?
No, they have to pay the assessment. They don't have to pay the connect.
You have to pay the assessment yearly plus interest, or pay it off.
However, I think that some banks, correct me if I'm wrong, may require, when you transfer the property, they may say, hey, there's public water.
Government financing.
Yeah.
They would have to pay off the assessment, plus they have to hook up.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
VA or FHA.
Did any of those houses qualify? Did any of those houses qualify?
Oh, yeah, we do a lot of VAs and FHAs, mostly FHAs. Yes.
So, the thing for me is really coming down to fire protection. So I want to say a couple of things. One, a little bit off topic. The chairman of SQUA is still here, and he corrected me on something I said earlier regarding the connection requirement of 1,000 feet for a new subdivision. Apparently, SQUA was very helpful in writing that regulation, and also has agreed to provide fire protection if it's in their service area. So I want to correct the record on that. And thank you for correcting me. So back to the fire protection thing. Oak Hills Trail is not very long. The point was made there is a fire hydrant on Avery Hill Road, so a significant number of those people are right next to a fire hydrant anyway. Further down on a flag lot, not so much. So, in my opinion, probably wouldn't be a big miss if we didn't do fire protection. Most of them sort of have it. So, that's kind of where I am on it.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this too. It's like, I know that we've added streets on that weren't added originally, but just because because that was the past, doesn't necessarily mean we should be going to the forward. These people were never notified of the original forward. Their street was going to be involved. We already know based upon the public hearing or the comments made at WPCA that at least 50% of the residents are opposed to it. And really, for most of them, the only benefit is fire protection, and which they already get, most of them already get from Avery Hill Road. And most of the lots are big enough that if their well failed, they've got plenty of room to go fill a new well somewhere else, cheaper than what it costs to hook up to us. So I don't see any real benefit to vote in favor of this.
Any further discussion? Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Marshall?
No.
Mr. Soms?
No.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
No.
Mrs. Davis?
No.
Mr. Dombrowski?
No.
Mr. Eichelberg?
No.
Mr. France?
No.
1 in favor, 7 opposed.
Motion is defeated. A new business, any council wish to amend the agenda at this time? Consent calendar? Did somebody move the, did somebody?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, removal? Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Admin.
I'll move to appoint Mr. Nathaniel A. Woody, Democrat of 770 Long Cove Road, Gales Ferry, as an alternate member to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2014, filling a vacancy left by Mr. Whittle.
Second.
How was it 3 years term in 2015?
The original term was
Filling the vacancy.
still the vacancy left by.
Mr. Chair, how is your committee doing now?
That will fill the committee.
Very good. And we have to get Mr. Whittle involved in something else because he's a good,
Mayor's looking for somebody on the, like,
very good.
got
Any
previous
further
zoning
discussion?
experience, he'd be excellent.
He would be.
Yeah.
Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next agenda item?
I'll move to approve the Registrar of Voters amendment to the emergency few inconsistencies, so we corrected those things. We did not make any substantive changes. We made a few clarifications.
Now, does this get submitted again, or wasn't it due by a certain date, or?
My understanding is they submitted it without the council approval.
Well,
We originally approved it last winter. And then this is just a change to that plan.
We approved it in December, but the changes.
They were supposed to be submitted by August 1st. I did speak with the registrar. They did notify them that there was a little bit of a glitch. And I just wanted to clarify something. Speaking with the registrar, the state statute, if we didn't pass the plan, the state statute dictated our plan. We didn't have to have everything that was in that plan. We just had to have our own plan. And if we didn't pass the plan, then state statute kicked in. So that's why the plan doesn't mimic state statute.
Now, some of the amendment that we made in admin tonight.
Get it a little closer.
Get a little bit closer. Added a couple of words just to make it so it more emulated what the statute said.
For
the
instance,
plan required to have.
One particular item said if there weren't enough workers, the whole plan was to immediately notify the registrar of voters. And that was it. Well, we added in the wording that says, who will then follow the procedure that she's supposed to do.
Any other discussion? Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Eight in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Finance? Mr. Grant?
Motion to authorize the mayor to sign proposed lease agreement between the town of Ledyard and 30 Group LLC, DBA 30 Marketing, as contained in the draft dated July 23, 2013, to lease space at the Gales Ferry Landing, formerly known as the Gales Ferry School/Facility, located at 7 Pearlbrook Road, Gales Ferry.
Second. Discussion.
For those that were here, we had a public hearing immediately prior to this meeting concerning it. We had comments from Bancroft, presented the date of the lease, Mr. Cherry, the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Eric Treaster comments on the lease. The lease is presented as a standard lease we have with the other tenants that are currently there. I would say it was negotiated in good faith based on that. And I would say, in my opinion, it would make sense if we're going to make changes, we make changes going forward and not done on a lease that's already been negotiated based on past practice.
I would like to see, and I think the best group to deal with this might be EDC, unless somebody else thinks it should go somewhere else. To really, we need a plan here, because it's, there was a lease that's already expired in July, and we haven't renewed that. We all think that something should happen after the second year, I believe. Maybe the rent should bump up or during the second year, or something. I think this whole thing, which turned out to be much better than anybody anticipated, but we need some policy and procedure, and I can't refer something to EDC since EDC works for the mayor, but I'm sure we can just get around that a little bit. But would you think the EDC is the best group to deal with this?
Yes. And we need to define incubation period.
Right.
2 years, 3 years, 5 years, what is it? And when they reach what we think is the end of it, do we say, that's it, you're done, you move out, or we charge more rent? But it has to all be defined. I think we went into this because it just started happening. And it's just snowballing into great happenings, and it's great that it's leased so much, but it's kind of, we put the cart in front of the horse, and now we kind of reverse that a little bit.
Well, I'll just say I was speaking with one of the members of the EDC tonight who expressed a little bit of dismay because there wasn't a whole lot happening with EDC right now. So it seems to me like maybe their schedule needs to fill it up.
So I can, Mayor.
I thought, Mr. Cherry, I don't know if I was not at the last EDC meeting or I left.
You were there.
I was there?
You were sitting next to me.
But you didn't say that they agreed to take this on? You said there was a discussion there?
Mr. Eichelberg said there was a discussion.
There was a discussion. Maybe I was the only one there.
Okay, I remember the discussion. I thought someone said that they had agreed to take this on.
No.
No, what I said was that EDC said we need to develop a philosophy.
Oh, we, not EDC.
There was mention of coming to the town council, talks with the town council. So yes, it was a collective we.
Our thoughts were that admin would take that on and Mr. Eichelberg would lead that charge.
That would be up to the chairman to.
I would endorse EDC doing it, obviously.
Okay, and that's what I will do is I'll send a letter to the mayor, because EDC is yours, EDC isn't us. I mean, if you don't have a problem with me sending a letter to the EDC.
I would send it to the chairman.
Okay, that's good. We got a little off topic, so back to the motion. Any further discussion?
I'd like to ask for an opinion from the people who have expertise in real estate and leases as to whether the fact that the lease doesn't specify how many square feet. I don't think it does. Is that a problem?
Yeah.
It's a terrible lease.
That's why I asked if it went to the town lawyer.
The lease is not.
That's why I asked that question. It went to the town lawyer and it came back like that?
Yeah, it's not a good lease. It needs to be improved.
But we negotiated this particular lease, so I think we need to honor it. But I think that comment needs to be, the mayor's here, he heard that. I mean, I did ask if it went to the town attorney. It did, and if the real estate people don't think it's a good lease, then I think we need to fix the lease.
And that can be all part of the EDC thing, and Fred or I would be, well, Fred
September 12th, I'll be there.
he has more experience in leasing than I do, so he would be a good person to look it over. Okay, any further discussion? Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Item 6.
Make a motion to transfer up to $3,000 from CNR account 21090358915 undesignated to account 2104011582000 property maintenance town hall annex for the purpose of purchasing and installing a security system in nursing offices to comply with new HIPAA rulings. In addition, at year-end, reimburse CNR account 2109030558915 undesignated for the same amount transferred to account 2104011582000 property maintenance town hall annex by appropriating general fund public health nursing revenue to exceed budgeted revenue.
Second.
Essentially, this is the change in HIPAA rulings that govern matters of electronic media that needs to be secured. This is the option that they have recommended to put an alarm on it to secure that space. Still, it's locked, but it doesn't provide 24-hour security. It's a prudent thing for not a lot of money. It's certainly covered by the revenues that the nurses provide. It provides a security to the clientele that service.
Any further discussion? Roxanne?
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
Discussion regarding the creation of an ad hoc committee to study a health savings account plan. The mayor brought forward to finance his recommendation to form an ad hoc committee. We had a briefing by our insurance representative about a year ago concerning health savings account benefit. I think it is a valuable asset for employees of the town. I think we should explore it further in a committee of knowledgeable individuals. Look at this, look at really what the cost is. There were some concerns raised by our insurance representative. I think we need to bring them back, discuss that, look at other towns that have this option, and what the benefit to the town is having this. There are some very real benefits for employees.
And this would be a committee, a mayor's committee?
Mayor's
Mayor's
yes.
committee,
Okay,
yes.
so he was just looking,
He wanted to know if we were interested in doing it, and I think he's looking for a volunteer on the council to participate on this committee.
He's looking for a member of the board of ed, member of the town council, the finance director, board of education participant, and the resource administrator to be that committee.
okay, so do we have a volunteer from the town council? We are, okay, since nobody raised their hand.
You didn't wait long.
I
had to think about it.
No, I was going to say that we're certainly in favor of it, and that somebody would volunteer, and they don't have to do it this minute, but we'll.
No, I mean, it's worth looking into, and we've now gotten all the pensions changed, and the next biggest cost for employees in the town is health insurance. So anything that we can do to cut down the cost of health insurance for the town as well as for the employee is a positive thing to look at. They were just concerns raised by the insurance people.
Okay, so we want to go forward, and we'll have a volunteer, and I'll let you know who that person is. I know the Board of Ed has a really good health insurance. Mr. Beaver is really into that.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, just one more thing that I should have mentioned under council comments, and I forgot. As some of you know, we had the time capsule. We tried to dig up the time capsule at Gales Ferry School. And sadly, we did not find the time capsule. But lo and behold, a week later, the secretary called the mayor's office. She remembers exactly where it is, and she even has a list of what's in it. So I'm not planning anything just now because being Geraldo Rivera once.
Well, we could have dug it up and used the spot.
But my thinking is we might go do some reconnaissance.
Yep. About 1 o'clock in the morning.
And we'll let you all know how it turns out. Now I'll take a
Motion to adjourn.
Karen, keep your computer on. GIS thing. Take a look at it.